Greetings, divine greetings. It's been a long time since I've hosted a talk with formerly Goddess Isfet. I now call the show, as you can see, Talks with Neterit Isfet. I have given up the Eurocentric term goddess in place of the Kemetic term Neterit. So I will, moving forward, go with that title instead of Goddess Isfet. Wow, it's been 6 months. I haven't done a show since February. A lot has gone on, I'm sure, in your lives as well as mine, between the COVID drama and everything else. I did the trip to Kemet. It was amazing. I will probably, I will do another one probably in 2 years. So stay tuned for that. But for those of you who have not seen my previous shows, I encourage you to go back and watch those because all the shows pretty much veggie back off of the previous shows. So tonight's show is going to be on a very exciting topic. It's actually the first of a series. I'm not sure how many shows will be in this series, but I know there will probably be a lot because we are talking about Maat philosophy. And Maa't philosophy encompasses a way of life that will help us dig ourselves out of this rut that we have put ourselves in. And I say ourselves because when we look around and we see the horrible things that's taking place in the world and all of the death and all the demise, a lot of times we want to disassociate from it, right? We want to blame other people. But as we start to dig deeper and get into this Maat philosophy, we're going to discover that we are contributors to the demise. If we are not actively learning how to understand and live Maat in the ever-present moment, then we are most likely contributing to the opposite of Maat. And so this subject is going to be one that I hope help uplift people. I can speak for myself. The energy in the atmosphere has been challenging for me. I know it's been challenging for others. I've had very powerful people reach out to me and just say, hey, I'm struggling with not going down. And I was like, yeah, I know I've been struggling as well. So energy is very powerful. And so when a lot of negative energy and a lot of death and fear is all around us, we have to really go in and dig deeper to protect ourselves so that we don't get caught up or swept up. And again, like I said, within the last 6 months, I've had my moments where I was just like, I don't even know what I'm doing here anymore. Like, why am I here? And then the Most High, the Creator, I go by the name Ra, will send little messages to remind me. And then from those messages, I just find the strength and the courage to keep doing exactly what we heard in that song moving forward. And by the way, that song was from Damian Marley and Nas, On the Road to Zion. And I chose that song because it talks about all the calamity, all the negativity that's going on in the world and the need to stay on the road to Zion, right? And for me, that's very much in alignment with On the Road of Maat. And so I thought it was just a cool song to play because they're actually taking Maat philosophy and bringing it down to a very practical level. And, and if you sit and listen to the song and vibrate with the song, you will be able to make the comparison yourself. All right, I said a lot, and I did not pour libation yet. So let me go ahead and do that so that we can open properly. We know that pouring libation, or if you don't know now, you will learn that pouring libation is an African tradition, and it is a way to pause and honor our ancestors, but first and foremost, honor the Creator, right? The sustainer and the creator and sustainer of our lives, and then the cosmic forces. And actually, Maat is a very, very major cosmic force, and then other entities such as there's all types of life forms that support Ra, And so we pour libation for those as well. And then the martyrs, the ancestors, the people that came here and dedicated their life to the upliftment of humanity. And then our bloodline ancestors, we pour and pray for them, for their upliftment and for their healing and their light. And so I will go ahead and jump in and pour a libation. So I didn't advertise this as a live tonight. I just wanted to kind of like go in incognito. So I don't expect people to really be on. So I expect people to watch this show after the fact. Because I haven't done a show in a while, I wanted to kind of like have an opportunity to do this show, I guess, without people really being on live. So when you are watching the show, you can also feel free to pay homage to the ancestors however you wish. Oh, blessed Creator that lives in all things, Ra, to those by many names, I honor you not only with my mouth, not only with my voice, but with my deeds. By offering my life force energy, my energy to help uplift this planet. I pour libation in your honor, and I pray that you continue to guide me, provide for me, protect me, and lead me on this path of truth and righteousness. I pour libation for the Netheru, those forces, those cosmic forces, those entities that represent the Creator, that work to help sustain creation, that keep law in order, that keep everything moving forward in spite of our desire not to be in alignment with those forces. I pour libation in honor of all of the elements of this realm: fire, water, earth, air. May our earth be once again purified and cleansed. May the heavens, the air be cleansed. May all the elements be cleansed and purified. May the enemies of Ra that are here destroying the earth, may they be destroyed so that the earth can once more flourish, and that the children of the light may once again inhabit the planet. I pour libation in honor of those martyrs, those ancestors that came before us and sacrificed their lives in order to make this place a better place, so that we can have a better tomorrow. I thank you and I honor you for your sacrifices and your selfless service. I pour libation in honor of the bloodline ancestors, my bloodline ancestors. I pray for their light, for their upliftment, for their healing. I pray and pour libation for all beings, all life forms, praying for light to spread across this planet and across this galaxy. I say, oh, tap. All right, so now that we got the libation done, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So if this is your first time, I implement PowerPoint in my talks so that we can have visuals. Visuals are very important. So let's get that going. Okay, so let's do one other thing. Get that there. Okay. All right. So tonight's topic, as I mentioned earlier, is Maa't philosophy, part 1. And tonight I will be focusing on answering the question and providing in-depth material and to help us get a better understanding of the basic underlying principle or principles of Maa't. And so we will start by looking at this question and answering it. What is divine law? And of course, this is from a Kemetic perspective. And so the first thing we want to do is go ahead and look at this word divine and get a clear understanding and make sure that we are in alignment with that understanding within this context. So divine is essentially of the supreme being, of source. So whenever we're talking about divine anything, we are attributing whatever we're talking about as belonging to or coming from or an extension of source, of the creator, of the supreme divinity. It really doesn't matter what name you call that force, that entity, that being. It can be God, it can be goddess. I like to go by supreme divinity, supreme being, or source. So it's essentially all the same. And then we want to look at the word law. And so law is essentially just a system of rules that governs. And so we all know that we have societal laws, right? Then we have like different laws. You can have a job or work for a company. They have their own laws and regulations that they put in place. You know, if you're late 3 times, you're fired and things like that. So we know that in order for us to function as a society, that law is necessary, that laws have to be in place. The question is, are we taught or have we been taught this concept of divine law and its importance? And so divine law is basically the rules that govern creation, directed by the supreme divinity. In ancient Kemet, this construct was encapsulated in Maat, and therefore Maa't was the basis of societal law. However, today, when we think about societal law, we know that Maa't is not present, right? And as we continue to delve into this, we will actually see that the opposite of Maa't is really at the core. It is the nucleus of societal law today. And so that's why I have here something to ponder on is divine law versus societal law. And so for those of you who haven't watched the previous videos, the reason why I go to the fountain of ancient Kemet is because ancient Kemet is the only recorded civilization that had a society that flourished in relative peace and harmony for over 10,000 years. And so we know that all of the subsequent so-called civilizations and societies didn't even last, you know, anywhere near that long. And they definitely was not built upon this premise of Maa't, this premise of being in divine alignment and one with divine law. And that was the root to the lack of harmony and peace in those societies. So I want to start by looking at the iconography for the word Maa't. As you've heard me mention, you know, everything in Kemet, when we think about their writing system, it was pictorial. So they use images to convey thoughts, because an image can actually convey a complete thought as opposed to a letter, right? A consonant or a vowel is essentially just a sound. And so when we look at the word Maa't, right, this is a very common depiction of how Maa't was written, as you can see here. When we break it up, we see that this image right here is the pedestal of Maa't, or the mat. And then this is the sickle, right, used for cutting away. And so when you see these two together, it can actually either be an M or an MA or an MAA. This symbol, the hand, the open palm hand, is also the long A. So you have the Ma'a, right? So you can actually remove this and still have the Ma'a. But the beautiful thing about keeping this here or adding it to it is it has both a phonetic purpose, right? It can, you know, give us the long A sound, but it also acts as I'm going to call a semi-determinative. So it helps you get a deeper understanding into this concept of Maat as a force that gives, right? A giving aspect within this this name. And then we have T, which is depicted by the loaf or the bun, which is bread. And we know that in just about all doctrines, bread symbolizes sustenance, right? Provision. And so again, we're not just looking at consonants and vowels, right, that make up sounds. We're looking at a thought process. We're looking at a meaning, an essence, almost like a story behind this depiction of Maat. And then you have this image here, which is a determinative, which means it helps you understand the nature of what these glyphs are meaning or conveying. And this is essentially, not essentially, it is the image of the Netarit Maat. And so when we look at the prefix or the ma'a, it means to give or to present, to offer, to make offerings, or to sacrifice. And this is going to be important, especially in the future classes or the future talks on this subject matter. And then when you look at the word in its entirety, Maat, right, the transliteration, you can actually, if you can get the sense and the understanding from working with glyphs and working with the Neteru, you will kind of like have a better understanding of what is fully being conveyed, right? And so here I have Maat equals divine offerings of sustenance in the form of divine wisdom, order, truth, and law, right? And that's in a very simple, I'm going to call it a level 1 definition. But as you will find as we go through these talks in this series, Maat is very deep. And so we're going to keep it surface level for now. So here's additional meaning symbolism for Maat. So if you didn't want to write out the whole glyph, how we just looked at it in the previous slide, you could just actually draw out this, and this determinative, everyone would know that's Maat. Or you can just draw the feather, and that could also be understood as meaning Maat. And so I want you to understand that just seeing this, right, it simply equates to the Neterit of life and divine order. And she's sitting in the sitting position with the Ankh being held there. And then the feather, as you will see as we again continue to look through the glyphs, symbolizes truth and balance. And then the pedestal or the mat symbolizes stability based on absolute truths that govern the underlying structure of both creation and dissolution. For example, the law of cause and effect. So you see the beauty of learning how to look at the pictorial writings and language or the glyphs of ancient Kemet, because they like encapsulate layers of wisdom and mysticism. And so, and this is exactly, what I mean by that. Looking at this image, this is an image of Assar standing on what? Standing on the pedestal of Maat, right? So if I know what this is, and I see this image, I can begin to understand the story, the theme of this image. And so Assar representing your highest self, right? In my previous Oh, I said it's right here. I was going to say in one of my previous talks, I talked about, according to Kemetic scripture, men and women are to become godlike or Ra-like or supreme being-like. And so this is depicted by this image of Assar. And Assar is standing on Maat, which means that in order to become godlike, your foundation must be Maat. There's no getting around it. And so it's very important for us to learn all that there is to learn about Maat and then begin to implement it in our day-to-day life so that we can manifest our Assar self, our godlike self, and fix the world, right? Because the sky is not going to open up and gods and goddesses or the creator is not going to, come out and fix the world. We messed it up because we decided not to seek Assar. We decided not to seek divine law, live in divine alignment. We want to be free to do whatever we want to do, no matter how degraded it is. And so as a result, we have the world in which we live in today. And the only way to reverse it or to fix it is to do the opposite of what we've been doing as humanity, and that is turning towards the higher self, right? And in order to do that, we must achieve Maat. And here, I almost forgot. So here in this scene, this is a judgment scene. And I'm not going to get into that so much in this lecture or this talk. But in this scene, you see that the heart is being weighed against the feather of Maat. And I've talked about the heart and its symbolism and in a previous talk. So hopefully you remember that, or you will go back and watch it. And so imagine what it would take for anything to be lighter than the feather of Maat. And so I have this feather in my head. It's an ostrich feather, right? Which is the feather of Maat. It's extremely light, right? It has almost no weight to it. So imagine what it would take for the heart, and we're not talking about the flesh, right? We're talking about symbolism, to be lighter than the feather of Maat. That means that there has to be nothing in the heart, right? Because the only thing that can really be lighter than the feather is nothingness. And so that's taking it to another level. So I just wanted to drop that crumb. So if we have Maat, right, and we're talking about Maat being the essence of divine order, the underlying essence of creation, right, then there has to be an opposing force. And so the opposing force is chaos. So the opposite of divine order, or Samin, is chaos, Isfet. And so Isfet is governed by the serpent Neter Apep, and that's Apep depicted in this picture here. And Apep feeds off of the fetters of mankind, right? It feeds off of all of our negativity. And all that negativity results from us living outside of divine order, right? When we are not trying to be Assar, right, in that other image, and we're trying to be, famous, or we're trying to be married, or we're trying to be rich, or we're trying to just pay our bills, or we're trying to be lofty, when we're trying to do all these other things and be all of these other things, then fetters form and develop. And those fetters, all of those negative desires and those negative energies end up feeding this chaos, right? And if we look at the world, it is filled with this chaos. Why? Because so many of us have willingly participated in doing things, right, that are outside of divine order, that are not in alignment with divine nature. And so when we talk about fetters, what are we talking about? We're talking about vices. We're talking about negative behaviors, negative attributes, negative habits, negative, negative everything. And so some of the vices or fetters manifest as greed, jealousy, hatred. And I want to pause because a lot of times, we think that, these don't apply to us. And that's because we're not even in tune with ourselves. We don't even know who we are. I mean, how much time do we spend really meditating and reflecting on our own programming, right? Why we do things automatically, why certain things trigger us, right? How we were cultivated as children, how our ancestral traits and energies that they pass down to us affect the way we think, the way we feel, the way we relate to other people, right? So for example, a lot of people will not raise their hand if I ask them, are you greedy, right? But if you play the lottery or you wouldn't mind winning the lottery, there's a chance that you may have some greed issues because, right, when we win the lottery, we are participating in this capitalism, right? And in capitalism, in order for anyone to have too much, that means there will be people that don't have enough, right? And so I'm not pontificating, I'm not judging. I'm just saying it's time for us, if we want to raise up out of this darkness, to be real with ourselves, right? To be real with where we are on this spiritual journey. And so, and make these assessments so that we can start making the necessary tweaks and the changes so that we can be in divine alignment, because that's what's going to be required for us to survive what this world is going through. Another one is jealousy. No one thinks that they're jealous of anyone, right? This is like the one that belongs to no one, but there's so much jealousy, and it's very subtle, it's very cunning, it's very sneaky, right? And you won't know that you're manifesting jealousy if you don't know how to use your witnessing consciousness, your moon consciousness, to watch yourself, to go in your unconscious mind and see if you have a little program in there that can manifest jealousy when it's triggered, even if it's in a very, very subtle like manner, right? We have hatred, injustice, dishonesty, right? All of these are a part of the political system that we all, vote for and we all give money into, right? All the dishonesty, the greed, the injustice. This is the essence of the societal law by which we live. Depression, fear, anger, sexual perversion. Oh, I won't even talk about that right now. Violence, gossip, destruction, oppression, regret, narcissism, abuse, lust, envy. And the interesting thing is, right, we see these things, we hear them, and again, we don't really make the assessment to circle which ones we're guilty of, right? Or which ones we've been guilty of in the past. Because if we've been guilty of them in the past and we haven't gone through the spiritual transformation to get to the root of why we did it in the past, then we are most likely able to repeat it in the future. Excuse me. So we really, again, as we start embarking on Maat philosophy so that we can survive and then move from surviving to thriving, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with one another about what we are partaking in that's contributing to the demise of the planet on an energetic level. And the other thing that I wanted to say was that most of us support a lot of these things because when we turn on the television and we watch movies and shows, this is the basis of most of the shows, right? How many shows are we watching today that are based in love and peace and divine order, healing, equanimity, right? Those things don't get a lot of play. But as soon as something come out, like a reality show where we get a lot of jealousy, envy, hatred, sexual perversion, some violence, some gossiping. I mean, the views go through the roof, right? And then when COVID-19 starts kicking us in the behind and all the other stuff that's going on out there, I'm not even going to get into that. Then we're like, woe is me, oh, the air is toxic, the water is toxic. Well, we are toxic, right? And we like toxicity. And if we didn't, we would be disgusted when we turn on the television and we see any of these things happening, right? So as long as we're plugged into any of this, then whatever happens to this planet, right? Whatever retribution the Creator has enfolded in divine order, we should get caught up in it as well. So what are we talking about from an energetic perspective when we talk about those fetters, all of those vices, right? And this is why I said early on, we have to really start taking ownership of how we are contributing to the negativity of this planet, to its demise, to its energetic degradation, right? So I love to use this image because it shows you the energetic vibrational frequency of negative energy, right? Versus high vibratory energy. So, when we're all like down and out and people are depressed and, like I said, I've had a few times during this whole fiasco and this pandemic where I started questioning my self-worth and my contribution and whether or not all of the work that I'm doing and the sacrifices that I'm making and the Maat offerings that I'm making, if it's even worth it, right? If everything is going to crumble around me. And then I had to realize, absolutely. I mean, because if it's just one person that's striving to vibrate up here in this joy, love, reason, peace, this high vibratory space, it can help to cancel out a bunch of people that's vibrating down here, right? So this is where we want to be. We want to be moving towards Maa't, right? APEP, dissolution, destruction, chaos is all down here, right? And almost everything that we watch on television, the music that makes the most money is all vibrating down here. Well, not all, most of it is vibrating down here. Some of the stuff that I hear now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to pour like bleach in my ears or something. Because the filth and the degradation is just so lowly. It's like you can't even really fathom how someone could sit down and write lyrics that disgusting. And then people play it and buy it and support it, right? And so again, now that the world is really getting its payback, right, from all the negativity that we've been spewing, people are sliding down a slippery slope. So it's really time for us to say, okay, we've been wallowing in this lowliness, in this degradation, right? We've been contributing to APEP. Now, what will it take for me to turn this stuff around, right, in my life? And it's going to take Maa't. It's going to take effort, dedication, offerings. It's going to take time. We need to learn the wisdom of Maa't and how to apply it to our lives in a very practical manner. So the world of Isfet, when Maa't is rejected, right? So I've been talking about this chaos, right, which is what Isfet is, and Maa't, which is this divine order. And in a previous talk, I talked about the construct of evil, right, or unrighteousness. And I had a quote, I don't remember it exactly, but it was something along the lines, it was from Kemetic scripture. The only thing that allows evil into the world is, I think, men and women living unrighteously, right? So something like that. That's the gist of it. So we can't blame outside forces. We can't blame the Creator, because as a collective, or the majority of us, have decided to live outside of divine order, or watch other people put laws in place that are outside of divine order and put systems in place, and we haven't done anything about it. We've just kind of like sat on the sideline. So then we are silent contributors to the chaos in the world. And when we look around the world today, what do we see? Right? Uh-oh. Let's see. 1 second. There we go. Right? We see famine in some parts of the world. This hasn't gone anywhere. Since I was a child, I watched commercials showing this, and that was like, a while ago, a long time, at least 3 decades ago, and it hasn't changed. It's actually getting worse. And whether we believe it or not, or know it or not, if we live in alignment with divine order, this planet can feed everyone on it. But because greed is basically running the planet, we have situations like this. Right? Don't get me started with the pollution. I mean, my lungs, I'm very hypersensitive to EMF. I'm one of those people that can sense what's going on in the environment. So my lungs have been struggling for the last several months, dealing with the 5G and the EMF poisoning and everything else. And it's going nonstop. Right? We have the pollution just of the land, right? Because of greed. The waters, right? And it all goes back to greed, because capitalism is greed based. Right? We have all kinds of abuse. Children are being abused. There's so much abuse right now in the world: physical, mental, spiritual, sexual abuse. And on one hand, you have people, right? This is capitalism at its largest. We have people starving in the world. They don't have enough to eat. But then you look at a country like America and you see this all over the streets, right? Obesity, the other extreme. So greed can get you either way, right? Because we know obesity does lead to disease. And it's a disease of greed. There goes the perversion. Sexual perversion is, it's so far out there now. I don't even know what to think about it. I mean, I know I read an article, and I know I may have mentioned this before, or maybe not, but I read an article over a year ago in which a woman, and it was actually 2 different women, married their dogs in, I think, Sweden. And so, of course, if they married their dogs, you know what that means. So we have, taken our sexual nature and our sexuality, and we have reduced it very much beneath animal. And the world is suffering because of that. Right? Infectious diseases. This is the one that's gotten everyone's attention, right? Because this is the one that has the fear of, I don't know what, the fear of COVID in everyone, right? This whole infectious disease and the whole pandemic has shaken things up for people. And now people are looking for, a savior, like energy to come and lift them up and heal the planet. From all of the demise and all the destruction that we either participate in or silently sign off on. Right? Prison system, incarceration, injustice. There's so many Black men incarcerated that it has thrown off the progeny of people of color. It's also thrown off our sense of self-worth. Women are doing lowly things to try to acquire the attention of the few men that are out there. I mean, we need to just do a whole talk show on that. And actually, I will down the road. Right? The drug epidemic. When you're not living in accordance to Maat and divine order, you eventually have to find ways to self-medicate. And so drugs is at an all-time high right now, and alcoholism. So Maat is the source of healing and sustenance, right? It's kind of like, you know, when you get sick, like you have COPD, right? And you get diagnosed with that, and you've been smoking all your life. And then the doctor tells you stop smoking and your lungs will start to clear up. And you know, a lot of people, when they're given that ultimatum, they don't have the strength or the willpower to stop smoking, right? I know people personally that's living that right now. And so they choose to continue smoking, and they choose, you know, death, the slow death, right? And so it's the same thing with what's going on with our world today, our society. Most people don't have the willpower or even the desire to make the necessary changes that's going to start moving things in the right direction. And so we need to be clear about that and say to ourselves, you know, if that's where we stand, I am actually going to continue to contribute to the demise of this planet, and understand that as calamities and things continue to fall, that you will put yourself in harm's way, rightfully so, right? And that's not like a fear tactic, it's just Maat. And so if you are a person that finally has reached the pinnacle where you're like, I need to, you know, get on the team that is going to help resurrect this planet and help, you know, destroy all of the enemies of Ra, the enemies of the Creator, all of the degradation, then you need to understand what it requires. And it requires the understanding that only individuated truth is relative, not divine truth. And then learning what that divine truth is. And so what am I talking about, right? In this cultural climate, right? In this Isfet climate, people will argue you down about what's right and what's wrong. They think that everything is relative when it comes to the concept of truth, right? However, there are absolute truths that has no bearing on whether or not men and women believe in those truths or are even aware of those truths, right? Our individual truth is relative, right? Because it belongs to only us. And so as we mature and we develop spiritually, we have to start letting go our little individuated truth, right? Or truisms, and start aligning and understand what divine truth is. And that's a part of what I do in the Reiki system. When you're in the system and you're going through the healing sessions and the classes and the spiritual counseling, you're being assisted in this process. You can't get all of it in one talk like this. This is an introductory talk to encourage you to get in alignment and to figure out how to get more of the divine truth. It also requires the desire to relinquish the false sense of freedom, to live outside of divine order as being a source of happiness. So what am I talking about? We have been duped into believing that to live in accordance to some kind of divine law restricts our freedom and therefore restricts our ability to be happy. Well, look around. We have been enculturated in a society that has thrown divine law out the window, right? We have decided that we can do whatever we want. If we want to have sex with animals, it's okay. If we want to have sex with children, in some circles, it's okay. If we want to cheat on our wives, it's okay. If we want to lie to the public in order to win a political position, it's okay, right? We have been taught that doing whatever we want, right, unless it's breaking a societal law, right, written by men who were unrighteous in this day and age, then it's pretty much okay. And then a lot of us know that people still break those laws anyway. And a lot of them get away with it, especially when we're talking about white collar crime. So one of the things that we have to relinquish is this false notion that if I have to live in accordance to divine order, I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to be restricted. No, you're actually going to start moving towards happiness because it's a cause and effect type of thing. Divine order and law is not there because there's some God or entity sitting in the sky watching you and checking off your list. It's because of cause and effect. If I live righteous, right, then I project positive energy into the world, and therefore I receive positive energy into the world. And the reverse or the opposite stands the same. It also requires daily effort to move the mind, body, soul into divine alignment with the principles of Maat offerings. So if you are not in a circle or a spiritual environment where you can learn the principles of Maat and have a support system, then look for one if you are ready to help turn things around in this world today. If you are ready to start living in a true sense of freedom, right? Because right now we're living based off of our egoistic desires, right? So we're being controlled by the ego, the lower self. And so where's the freedom in that? The true freedom comes from us learning how to rise above those lowly egoistic desires so that the soul can rise up and flourish. That's true freedom, right? So again, my talks are here is a guide. There's other people in schools of thoughts and organizations that are out there to help you. I have a system that's designed to help Arat Reiki. You can go to aratrareiki.com, which is on my YouTube page. Just start plugging in and don't let Google or YouTube be your source. You really need to work with people that have put in the years and have tried and proven methodologies to help you and have a deep understanding of, Kemetic mysticism and Maa't philosophy. So that was my introduction to Maa't philosophy. It was designed to get you encouraged to come back and listen to the upcoming parts. I will actually start going into the precepts. And when we go into the precepts, which are basically laws, right, that will help you engender positivity in your life and by extension, your family, your community, and the world. We will look at the hieroglyphs just like we did tonight for each precept, and we will talk our way through them and then discuss how to bring these precepts into our lives in a very practical way, right? One of the main things that I attempt to do is take these lofty mystical constructs of ancient Kemetic mysticism and make them practical so that we can utilize them as tools in our present to assist us in forging a better future for ourselves. So as always, big dua, adorations to the divine in you for watching. And I hope to see you on the next session. Peace and love. Hatep.